this is my major project. In my major project, my components that I use is the MOSFET, humidity sensor, temperature sensor, the red LED, buzzer, 12-volt DC ball bearing fan, and a mobile phone. The first thing I set up for my major project is the OLED display on the Arduino, which outputs the raw numbers from the DHT11. Using these numbers, I send it to a JavaFX UI, which displays these numbers in real time, while also checking for any discrepancies. There are also two buttons on the JavaFX UI window, Autopilot and the manual fan control. When using the manual fan control, it sends a signal to the Arduino to turn on the red LED that acts as a switch to give power to the fan. And when pressed again, it turns the fan off. Next is the autopilot button, which when turned on, which tells the Java code to check if the temperature or humidity is over a certain threshold. And if it is, the fan will turn off. If it isn't, it will turn the fan off. An additional feature of the autopilot mode is when it turns on, it indicates to the user through a sound through the buzzer that it is turning on, which sounds like this. One of the most helpful features of this project is that it automatically sends the JavaFX UI window as a JPEG, which could be used to monitor both the temperature and humidity of the inside of your house wherever you are. Taking a deeper dive into JavaFX code, there are four main UI elements. So there are the first two, which is the two labels, one for temperature and one for humidity. There are another two buttons, which are one for the autopilot and then the manual fan control. Looking at the main method of the code, you can see that it calls upon a method called update UI. This UI is something that creates a new thread, which is working in the background of the UI thread, which is the main window. This thread is responsible for updating the labels of the temperature and humidity constantly. First, the thread tries to open a serial port with the following properties. Then it checks the serial port event, which then tries to check the bytes and then convert it back into integers. Then there's a sort of alternator which checks which value it's currently sending. So the Arduino alternates between the humidity and the temperature through serial write, and then the Java code checks through alternation that if it's the temperature or the humidity that's being sent. Once the current temperature and current humidity are assigned, it runs something called a platform run later, which applies the UI thread from the current thread that's running and updates those elements. So you see the temperature label being updated and the humidity label being updated. Lastly, the most important feature that was added is the ability to output the JavaFX UI window into a PNG and then save it to a folder which can then be uploaded to the cloud through this code here.